Hello and welcome everybody to an in-depth discussion about investments. So I have some cards that I'm going to use just kind of as props here to make some points. And this is not advice of any kind. These are all my opinion about finances and investment into sports card collectibles. It's going to be two parts. The first part is generally why I'm not an investor when it comes to holding individual cards. The second part is going to be more like things that may be considered investments, but generally I consider myself a collector. Now, we're going to deep dive into the investment world. Buckle up. This isn't something that lots of channels talk about. So if you came here for some good investment ideas and discussion, remember, not advice, this is the place. All right. So we need to explore some options about investment. But before we dive into that, we need to understand what creates value here. Now, there's this general economics principle, you guys know it, supply and demand. Supply in the card world is limited by the manufacturer. But there's kind of other layers, like for example, this Justin Herbert is serial numbered to 799. But then you have, well, how many PSA 10s are there? How many SGC 10s are there, or BGS 9.5s, or BGS Pristines? There are several layers of the supply that limit the supply. Okay, so just understand that. And that's kind of the supply. That's it. When it comes to and what's available on the market. So the next is the demand. Now this is where it just goes bonkers, all right? There are so many variables. You can't just say, oh, it's based on their performance. It's not. It's based on their popularity. Okay, that's a valid thing. In the stock market, they call that sentiment. All right, what's the sentiment? How does the market feel about the stock? But we're just going to call it popularity, all right, because it's a sports card. Now, there are some things that we need to, so before we get to popularity, we need to go down a step to the base of popularity, and that's the general market. How many people, like in 2020, we saw a huge flooding, just inundated with interest in the sports card world. And so the general interest in sports cards in general just ballooned. It just became this big bloated thing where there was tons of interest from everybody. And that is a huge influence, okay? And then in addition to that, there is the player's popularity. There's the player's performance. Like this is Tom Brady right here, happened to win the Super Bowl. Do they perform well? That's going to influence it. Again, it's not just their performance, it's also their popularity and how many people are in the market. And then in addition to that, it is the market, their micro market, as I like to call it, even though they're pretty large markets. So for example, Tom Brady plays for Tampa. Let's talk about basketball for a second. So if you have a small time, relatively small area, like let's say Utah Jazz players aren't in a huge, massive market like Los Angeles or New York. And so lots of times, their players just don't command the premium because they don't have that large market to support them in the value of their prices. You see? And so there's tons of stuff like that, and there are tons of little nitpicky things we could get to. People have projections for Hall of Fame status. People have projections for like how long their career is going to be. Quarterbacks have a much longer career than running backs per se, and so there's all this stuff that goes into the value of a card. Okay, just understand that it's multifaceted. People who just pick out their one favorite little stat line. Oh well, these people are going to be Hall of Famers. How come their cards aren't worth so much? Look at James Harden. Very good basketball player, very good statistics. Just not as popular as he could be. If he were more popular, I, in my opinion, I would estimate that his cards would be worth 10 to 20% more than they are currently. So it's interesting, the value of cards. And you have to understand that it's dynamic, okay? The number of people in the investment looking to buy individual cards fluctuates. The popularity of a player fluctuates. Their performance fluctuates. Their long-term outlook fluctuates. The final thing on top, future value. A Hall of Famer who's passed away 50 years ago, they don't have any future value in their performance. They have future value in documentaries coming out, people, hyping them up online, influencers. So there's some value, some future value there, but very little compared to somebody like, let's say, a rookie. This is Justin Herbert. At the making of this video, Justin Herbert's second year in the league. Justin Herbert has lots of future value. But every year he doesn't win a Super Bowl or doesn't win the league MVP or Super Bowl MVP or make it to the Pro Bowl, that future value decreases. There's that time erosion of value. A lot of people don't talk about that. So that's something that Justin Herbert has tons of. He has buckets of future value, where a Hall of Famer has a thimble of future value. And lots of hyped up players, popular players, get that premium built into the price of their card. So the quick answer, and I've said this I think in other videos, the quick answer as to why a rookie is worth more than a Hall of Famer is because of future value. It's pretty basic, all right? Okay, so understanding why cards have value is important in the investment discussion, okay? Now, I want to talk about a seemingly good investment, and this is the classic case of why I don't consider myself an investor and why I try not to invest, period. I'm a collector, all right? And we're going to talk about Tom Brady. So Tom Brady came out on the scene, I think it was 2000, we saw his first rookie cards, and he was a 6th round draft pick. No draft capital, no interest, nobody cared, okay? $1 card, okay? Now, after Super Bowl, Deflate Gate, Super Bowl, spying allegations, Super Bowl, Tampa Bay Super Bowl, greatest of all time, he's the GOAT, man. So his $1 card is now $500. You see, that was a great investment. Was it? Let's talk about that. So you're telling me that your investment strategy is to buy all the quarterbacks in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round. Just buy them all up. You're spending tens of thousands of dollars in 1995 and 96 and 97 and 98 and 99 and 2000. Oh, we got Tom Brady in 2001 and 2000. And you're doing that for 40 years. And then you get one Tom Brady. You have to do the math. And this is why I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do that math. What are my sunk costs before I finally hit a Tom Brady? You're telling me that you're going to go out and buy every RPA of every single... that's going to add up. And then you get one, maybe. That makes it big. So what's your return on investment? It's not just 1 to 500. You've spent, let's say that year, you spent, $1,000. And you're at 500. And let's say you have 2 of them. So you're at break even? Oh, well, all those other cards... All right, well, hold on a second, because you also have your transaction costs. So if you're talking about straight line depreciation, you're just doing straight business, then the place you're holding it, what about the holder that you put it in? What about your PSA grading costs? What about the space in your house? What about your eBay selling fees or your auction fees? Is it seller paid or are you on eBay? Are you paying those fees? What about, all the other things that like what kind of box are you putting in? What are your shipping expenses? All that gets factored into it. You're losing 12% just on that transaction right there. And so you're not even making your money back. Does that make sense? With the example that I just presented. So it gets really, like, for a business mind who's serious into investing, you add all those things up and you're like, maybe that's not the best investment. Maybe you'd be better going out and just buying a 4% bond or a 5% bond and just keeping up with inflation. I mean, come on. So you can see why there's concerns. Why I have concerns about investing. I'm just not going to do the math, and I can't be bothered shooting for the stars with these low round draft picks. All right, what about higher round draft picks? Okay, remember how I said the future value is priced into the card. So let's say that this Justin Herbert, okay, is selling for, it's not this one. Justin Herbert has cards, I think that it's like the optic rated rookies or just the Donruss, I forget what they were, but the PSA 10 cards sell for around $200, right? So you get it for like $180 or something, plus shipping, plus taxes. It comes out to about like $200, okay? So let's say your $200 card, let's say Justin Herbert, Andrew Luck, it just falls off a cliff, okay? Card values drop off. That's a possibility. What about, and these are the most likely possibilities, is that he's just average. He's just an average quarterback. He's in the top 20 for passing yards. At the end of his career, he has 3 Pro Bowls, let's say 4 Pro Bowls, a Super Bowl appearance where he lost, and he's just a good quarterback, okay? So his card declines. Let's say his future value declines 2% every year because of, let's say, future value decrease, like the time erosion of value. So he's losing future value, and his card goes from 180 down to like 120. Okay. Well, that's not great. So you've lost money. Bad investment. Let's say that he is amazing. Let's say he wins 2 Super Bowls and he's kind of that fringe line. Could he be Hall of Famer at the end of his career? Let's say he retains that value, $180. It's worth $180 for 20 years. Is that a good investment? And then there's somebody out there who says, well, you didn't lose money. Yes, you did. Remember how I talked about inflation? You lost, let's pick a number, okay? For example, I'm just making examples here. Let's say you lost 3% due to inflation every single year. Again, you would have been better for those 2 most likely examples, you're better buying a bond at 5%. Because then, you can see where I'm going with this, can't you? Let's say that he does do really well. Let's say he wins 5 Super Bowls and is obviously in the Hall of Fame. Let's say his card goes from 200 up to 500. All right, there you go. That's an example of, an above average performing star. So if you bought all the rookies, and again, it comes back to, did you buy Joe Burrow? Did you buy, who else was it last year? I'm thinking of Justin Fields, but that's this year. So last year it was Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Tua Tagovailoa. Okay, if you bought all 3 of those, you bought tons of them. One of them can have a good performance, but the other 2 are probably going to have that average where they are declining, 40% or whatever over the course of 20 years. So you've lost money on some of your investment, and you made some, and how are you coming out in the end? You have to do that math. You see why it's hard being an investor? And then there's all that soul-wearing costs, right? Now you have to list it on eBay. You're going to send it to ComC. Did you send it into PSA to be graded? What were your PSA fees? What are your storage fees? All of that stuff. And then there's taxes on top of that. So it's an interesting idea, but you can see how I would want to avoid that. And then there is the possibility, the 1 in a million, where one of these rookies wins 9 Super Bowls, is the greatest player ever, and beats Tom Brady as the GOAT, and has the passing record and the reception, the most rushing yards ever by a quarterback. It's just, yeah, okay, well then his $200 card goes to $10,000. Well, good for you. Okay, it's like winning the lottery. And there's a gambling fallacy there. It's all right. So remember, hundreds of first-round picks, second-round picks, highly hyped quarterbacks don't become this. In fact, that's that normal. It's normal. For Tom Brady is not normal, okay? So that's where the general trajectory is. Very average returns, if any. Now, let's talk about Hall of Famers. The same thing, okay? Regardless of how historical they are. I admit and I love the history and the historic value of Hall of Famers. Frankly, I'm really interested in that. But as an investment, no. As a collectible, yes, I want them. I love Willie Mays and his well-rounded baseball style. It's just amazing when you read about it and you listen to the game, and it's just like, wow, Willie Mays, man. And then, but you look at prices, right? Oh, well, this card has been worth $60 for 30 years. Now there's a bloated interest in the hobby, so let's say it bumps up a little bit, but whatever. But let's say on average people are saying, well, look, for the last 30 years it's been $100. It's a good investment because it's not going to lose value. Same thing with the future value. That inflation will just eat away at your value there to a point where it's, in my opinion, not a good investment. So individual cards are very hard for me to yes. And there's going to be people out there, and you'll see them in the comments. You'll see them all over the internet who say, I bought this card, and I bought 1 card, and in 6 months I sold it for this. Okay. Now, that's very dangerous for a couple of reasons. Number 1, that does happen. It did happen all over the place, and people are very vocal about that, okay? But remember, that's abnormal. We had an abnormal interest in the market, and so everything went up. You could have bought literally any card, and it would have increased in value a certain percent, with a few exceptions, okay? And then, so Hall of Famers, yeah, I made 10%, I made 20%, it doubled in money. And then you get people who were like Justin Herbert. I bought Justin Herbert before there was the incident with Tyrod, with the lung being by the physician, I bought Justin Herbert, for $100, now his cards are worth $1,000, okay? All over the internet. We get it, 10x your money. Wow, good for you. We're proud of you. But that is a short-term speculative move. you see where I'm going with this? That's speculation. That's like going out on the open market and buying a derivative. Like for those of you not in the stock market, like a call or a put, right? Just derivatives off of stocks, which can move 1,000% in a day. Almost every day there's one that moves 1,000% in a day, And so when I don't want to speculate on cards. It's like, yeah, just buy some random card and just hope that there's a huge increase in demand or market or that somebody gets injured. You see? I don't want to speculate on that either. At that point, is that an investment? What's my time frame for that investment? It's purely speculative. So there is no time. It's not like a 6-month investment or a 10-year investment or a 30-year investment. It's just speculation. Okay? Which is fine. If people want to do that, it's a free country. Do it. It's fun. But I'm not going to do that. I'd rather hold the card and get enjoyment out of the card. So Hall of Famers, no. Speculation, no. Individual cards, no. For me, my opinions. Okay? I'd rather have my money in different investments. Let's say it that way. So individual cards, absolutely not. Why do I collect? Because I get enjoyment out of the cards. My boy and I love looking through these cards. He has quite a Pokemon collection too. And again, we have some things that we like to look at. Like I bought one of his favorite Pokemon is Lunala because of the Game Boy game. It's not 3DS is what he calls it. And so we love like his PSA 10 Lunala, and he has and he has it there on display, and he loves it. We looked at when we watched football. We looked Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. He's holding this card, just like it's Tom Brady in a Bucs uniform, and here's him in a Patriots uniform, and it's fun to have that connection with the players. And with my boy, right? It's a social family thing that's for entertainment. That's why I love to collect. It's fabulously interesting. But there is another side of this. And remember, in part 2, we're going to talk about the financial value I get out of collecting. And the one more thing I want to address about speculating. There's another aspect to the hobby where people are putting in a lot of shoe wear, a lot of sole wear into their side hustle. And I'm just going to say how I see it, okay? I see it as a side hustle, not as an investment, where people are going to Walmart, going to Target, going to Lids, going to Cracker Barrel, going wherever every retailer they can. So they're driving or walking or biking, spending their time, and they're buying retail boxes of cards, and then they're bringing them home, and then they're posting them on eBay, and then they have to package them, and then they have to ship them. They have to pay the eBay fees. And then they need to leave, and they spend all that time they have to, and so after all of that, they come back and they're like, I made $10,000 in 2 months or 1 month, whatever. That's a good side hustle. It's very temporary, but it's a good side hustle, okay? But do you consider that investment? An investment of time, perhaps, but that's more of a job. At that point, you've kind of crossed the line from investing to becoming a dealer, whatever you want to call it. A dealer, a redistributor, a reseller, whatever, okay? But at that point, in my opinion, it's not investing. So we're going to talk about more of this and boxes and how collections can increase in value and how I see that in the second video. But right now, just conclusion, individual cards, not something I invest in. When people say, oh, invest in this card, not me, I'm a collector. I like a player, I'm going to buy that player. I'm going to crack boxes just to get all the players because I like watching the sports. If I don't like watching the sports, I'm not going to buy tons of their cards. That's it. That's the end of the story. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below about investing, collecting, how much you enjoy it, all of it. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, like the video. You guys know the routine.